The silence was the first thing that truly unnerved me. Not the quiet of my own house, mind you. I'd always cherished that, especially after retiring from the controlled chaos of nursing. No, this was a different kind of silence, an unnatural absence. My small bungalow, usually filled with the comforting predictability of mail slot clatter and the phone's occasional chirp, had fallen still. It had been 3 weeks since my minor knee surgery, a routine procedure Dr. Peterson assured me would have me back tending my roses in no time. I was recovering well, physically at least, confined mostly to my armchair with a stack of books and a view of the bird feeder. But the mail had stopped. Completely. And my daughter Patricia. Well, Patricia wasn't answering her phone. At first I brushed it off. Mail delays happened. Patricia was busy, juggling her job, her house, her life. She'd visited right after the surgery, fussing over me with a strained sort of energy I'd attributed to worry. She promised to check in daily, handle my bills, collect my mail. But the daily calls dwindled to every few days, then stopped altogether. My messages went straight to voicemail, her mailbox perpetually full. A knot of unease began to tighten in my stomach, a feeling honed by decades of observing patients, sensing when something was subtly, dangerously wrong beneath a placid surface. My husband, bless his soul, always said I had a sixth sense for trouble. Arthur had been gone 5 years now, but his presence felt strong sometimes, a steadying hand on my shoulder. His life insurance policy, meticulously maintained, was meant to ensure I never had to worry financially. Little did I know how central that policy would become to this unfolding nightmare. I tried calling my neighbor, Martha. Her line rang and rang. Strange. Then I tried Carol, my friend from the hospital auxiliary. Voicemail again. It felt as though a glass wall had descended around me, isolating me in my own home. The unease curdled into genuine worry. Was something wrong with Patricia? Had there been an accident? My mind, trained to leap to worst-case scenarios in medical crises, started racing. But wouldn't someone have notified me? I was listed as her emergency contact. Unless they couldn't reach me, because they thought I wasn't reachable, because they thought. The thought was too monstrous to complete. I pushed it away, blaming the pain medication, the boredom, the four walls closing in. Determined to break the silence, I used the ride-share app Dr. Peterson had helped me set up before the surgery. My knee protested, but the need to know, to shatter this unnerving quiet, was stronger. I directed the driver to Patricia's house, a neat suburban home she'd always struggled to maintain. As we pulled onto her street, I saw it. A black wreath hanging on her front door. My blood ran cold. Oh God, something had happened, but not to Patricia. As the car stopped, I saw her neighbor, Mrs. Gable, tending her petunias. She looked up, saw me slowly, painfully extracting myself from the car, and her face went utterly pale, her eyes wide with disbelief, almost terror. She dropped her trowel, backing away slightly, making the sign of the cross. Barbara? Barbara Whitman? But, you can't be here? She stammered, her voice trembling. Patricia told us all. You passed away. Complications from the surgery. We mourned you. The world tilted. Mrs. Gable's words struck me with the force of a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. Passed away? I repeated, the words tasting like ash. Mourned me? It didn't make sense. My mind scrambled, trying to reconcile the concerned daughter who'd brought me soup just weeks ago with the image Mrs. Gable was painting, a daughter who had announced my death. Mrs. Gable, recovering slightly from her shock, hurried over, her initial fear replaced by a confused sympathy. Oh, Barbara, dear Lord. There must be some terrible mistake. Patricia was devastated. She told everyone at the neighborhood watch meeting last week, said the infection set in fast, complications. We sent flowers to the funeral home she mentioned, O'Malley's downtown. O'Malley's. I knew the place. Arthur had been laid out there. The The thought of flowers, condolences, arrangements being made for my funeral sent a wave of nausea through me. Patricia, why? Why would she do this? The strained energy I'd noticed, the dwindling calls, the full voicemail, it wasn't worry or busyness. It was avoidance. Deception, Mrs. Whitman, Gable continued, her voice hushed. She seemed so distraught, handling everything herself. Said she needed space, that the grief was overwhelming. Grief? Or guilt? The black wreath on Patricia's door wasn't for her mother, it was a prop. A sickening piece of stagecraft in a play I hadn't known I was starring in. I thanked Mrs. Gable, my voice a thin, reedy thing I barely recognized. I couldn't face Patricia yet. Not like this. The betrayal was too raw, too enormous. I needed proof. I needed understanding, though I suspected understanding would offer little comfort. Back in the ride share, the silence was heavy again, but now it wasn't empty. It was filled with the chilling echo of Mrs. Gable's words. You passed away. I directed the driver not home, but to the county records office. My knee throbbed, a dull counterpoint to the sharp agony in my chest. Waiting in line, leaning heavily on my cane, I felt invisible, a ghost haunting the bureaucratic halls. When my turn came, I asked the clerk, my voice low but steady, if a death certificate had recently been filed for Barbara Whitman. The clerk tapped on her keyboard, her expression neutral. Then her eyebrows shot up. Whitman, Barbara Ann? She confirmed, looking at me strangely over her glasses. Yes, that's right. She turned the monitor slightly, though I couldn't quite read it from my angle. Filed 2 weeks ago. Cause of death listed as post-surgical complications, sepsis. Signed by Dr. Alvarez? I didn't know any Dr. Alvarez. My surgeon was Dr. Peterson. And the informant? The clerk continued, squinting at the screen. Listed as daughter, Patricia Holloway. She also presented power of attorney documents. Power of attorney? I'd signed one years ago, naming Patricia, yes, but it was only meant to be invoked if I was incapacitated, not dead. My breath hitched. It was real. She had filed the certificate. She had declared me dead to the world, armed with legal documents meant to protect me, now twisted into weapons against me. The clerk looked back at me, suspicion dawning in her eyes. Can I help you with something concerning this record, ma'am? She asked, her tone shifting. How could I possibly answer that? How could I explain that the woman on that certificate was standing right in front of her? The monstrous thought I'd pushed away earlier returned with chilling clarity. This wasn't just a bizarre lie. This was something calculated, something profitable. The life insurance, Arthur's policy. My stomach plummeted. Leaving the records office felt like stepping out of a nightmare into a harsher reality. The official stamp on that certificate, the mention of a doctor I didn't know, the power of attorney invoked under false pretenses. It wasn't just a lie Patricia told the neighbors. It was fraud. Cold, calculated, legal fraud targeting me, her own mother. The why still echoed, but the how was becoming terrifyingly clear. She needed me legally dead, and the power of attorney gave her the key to unlock everything Arthur and I had worked our lives for, especially his insurance policy. A substantial one, meant to be my security, my peace of mind. Now it was likely the prize Patricia was aiming for. My first coherent thought was, Dr. Peterson. He knew I was alive. He'd performed the surgery, monitored my recovery. He was my anchor to reality in this surreal storm. I called him from the ride share, my voice trembling despite my efforts to control it. James, I began, dispensing with pleasantries. It's Barbara Whitman. I need your help. Urgently. I explained, haltingly at first, then with growing outrage, what I had discovered, the neighborhood pronouncements, the death certificate, the unknown Dr. Alvarez. James listened patiently, his initial silence giving way to sharp intakes of breath and low curses. Barbara, this is monstrous, he finally said, his voice tight with disbelief and anger. Dr. Alvarez? Never heard of him associated with our hospital. And sepsis? Your recovery was textbook. There were zero complications. He paused. The power of attorney, she must have used that to access your medical information, perhaps selectively, to build some sort of narrative. But forging a death certificate, invoking a fake doctor, that's serious. Criminal. He promised to help immediately. He would pull my complete, accurate medical records, documenting my surgery date, my discharge, my follow-up appointments, his notes confirming my excellent recovery. He would check hospital records for any mention of this Dr. Alvarez. He would provide a sworn statement confirming my health status. We need irrefutable proof you're alive and well, Barbara, he said, his professional calm returning, and that any claim otherwise is fraudulent. His support was a lifeline. Knowing I wasn't entirely alone in this fight gave me a sliver of strength. Back home, the silence felt different again, charged, dangerous. I looked around at the familiar objects, the photographs of Arthur, of Patricia as a smiling child, and felt a profound sense of violation. My own daughter had tried to erase me. For money. The thought was a physical pain deeper than any surgical incision. I remembered Patricia mentioning, vaguely, some financial tight spots over the past year, waving away my offers to help. Had it been more than tight spots? Had it escalated into something desperate? The power of attorney. I vaguely recalled signing papers years ago when Arthur was ill, setting up wills and directives. Patricia had been there, helpful, efficient. Had she planned this even then? Or had desperation recently pushed her over the edge? The trust I'd placed in her, the natural, maternal trust, felt like a fool's burden. She hadn't just lied. She'd weaponized my love, my foresight in planning for my own vulnerability. And the target wasn't just my savings or my house. It was Arthur's legacy, the final provision he'd made for my care. She was trying to steal his final act of love. The thought ignited a cold fury within me, eclipsing the hurt. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about justice. The cold fury sustained me through the next few days. While Dr. Wife Peterson gathered the medical evidence, I began my own quiet investigation into Patricia's life, trying to understand the desperation that could drive a daughter to such lengths. It felt like peeling back layers of varnish on a familiar piece of furniture, only to find rot underneath. I started with her social media, something I rarely looked at. Her public profile was a curated stream of normalcy, photos of her garden, complaints about traffic, links to recipes. But tagged photos from acquaintances, posts she hadn't controlled, told a different story. There were pictures from casino nights, charity events held at racetracks, comments about ladies' poker weekends. Things she'd never mentioned to me. Small clues, perhaps, but they painted a picture of a social life revolving heavily around gambling venues. Then, I did something I'd never thought I'd do. I ran a discreet online search for public records related to her address. It didn't take long to find it. A pre-foreclosure notice filed against her house just last month. The neat suburban home she was so proud of, the one she was struggling to maintain, was on the verge of being lost. The dates aligned chillingly. The notice was filed shortly before my surgery, right around the time her worry seemed to intensify, her visits becoming more frequent, albeit strained. Had she seen my routine surgery as a grotesque opportunity? A chance to solve her financial crisis with my death? The pieces clicked into place with sickening precision. The gambling wasn't just social, it was an addiction, deep enough to risk losing her home. The life insurance money wasn't just a windfall, it was a lifeline she was willing to commit fraud, to erase her own mother, to grasp. Dr. Peterson called back with the medical file, a thick manila envelope that felt like concrete proof of my existence. "Everything's here, Barbara," he said grimly. "Your surgery, recovery notes, discharge summary signed by me, follow-up appointments scheduled. Absolutely no mention of sepsis or any Dr. Alvarez. I also checked with hospital administration. No physician by that name has privileges here, or ever has. Whoever signed that certificate, it wasn't legitimate. He also confirmed that Patricia had indeed requested access to my medical records using the power of attorney about a week after my surgery, citing concerns about my ongoing care. She had laid the groundwork meticulously. Looking at the file, at the clinical documentation of my life and health, juxtaposed against the foreclosure notice and the phantom doctor Alvarez, the full scope of Patricia's desperate, cruel plan became undeniable. My initial shock morphed into a steely resolve. Part of me, the mother part, ached for the daughter who had fallen so far. But the woman she had tried to victimize, the woman she had declared dead for profit, knew she couldn't simply confront her. A tearful confession wouldn't undo the fraud, wouldn't stop the insurance claim, wouldn't address the underlying addiction that fueled this nightmare. No, this required more than a mother-daughter talk. This required a strategy. I wouldn't let her erase me. I wouldn't let her gamble away Arthur's legacy and my future. I would gather every piece of evidence, build an unshakable case, and confront her not with tears, but with undeniable truth at the moment she least expected it. The moment she thought her troubles were over. The next week was a blur of quiet, methodical work. While Patricia presumably navigated the bureaucracy of death claims, believing me safely out of the picture, I was building the case for my life. Dr. Peterson's medical file was the cornerstone. To that, I added my own documentation. I printed bank statements showing my recent debit card transactions, coffee purchased near Dr. Peterson's office after a follow-up, groceries ordered online. Small proofs of life Patricia wouldn't know about. I gathered phone records showing my unanswered calls to her, logged the dates and times. I even wrote a detailed statement, chronicling everything from the stopped mail, to Mrs. Gable's revelation, to the discovery at the records office. Writing it down felt both cathartic and chilling, solidifying the narrative of betrayal. I contacted Carol, my friend from the auxiliary, explaining the situation briefly. She was horrified, immediately offering support. She remembered Patricia calling her, sounding tearful, relaying the news of my passing. Carol agreed to provide a statement about that call. Martha, my neighbor, was harder to reach, but I finally got her on the phone. She too had been told I'd died and expressed profound relief and confusion upon hearing my voice. Another witness willing to attest to Patricia's deception. Each piece of evidence felt like adding a stone to a wall I was building around myself, a fortress of truth against her lies. The emotional toll was immense. Some nights, I'd sit in Arthur's old armchair, clutching a photograph of Patricia as a gap-toothed 7-year-old, beaming after winning a school prize. Where did that little girl go? How could she become the woman who would orchestrate such a cold-hearted scheme? The grief for the daughter I thought I had was almost as sharp as the anger at the daughter she had become. There were moments of doubt, whispers in my mind suggesting I should just confront her privately, try to handle it within the family. But then I'd remember the foreclosure notice, the fake doctor, the calculated use of the power of attorney. This wasn't a simple mistake or a cry for help. It was a crime. And it was aimed directly at my security, my identity. Through a contact Dr. Peterson discreetly engaged, a retired insurance investigator he knew, I learned how life insurance claims typically proceed. The investigator confirmed that a large policy like Arthur's would require careful review, but a seemingly legitimate death certificate and power of attorney would significantly smooth the path. He also gave me a crucial piece of advice. The final payout often required the beneficiary to sign documents in person at the insurance company's main office. He suggested trying to find out when Patricia's appointment might be. That became my focus. How could I know when she planned to collect? I couldn't exactly call the insurance company myself without revealing my hand too early. Then I remembered something Patricia had let slip during one of her last, strained visits before the calls stopped. A complaint about having to take a specific Friday off work soon for important financial stuff. Which Friday? Checking the calendar, correlating it with the typical processing time for such claims, it had to be the upcoming Friday. This Friday, a jolt went through me. It felt right. It felt like the final piece of the puzzle clicking into place. The confrontation wouldn't happen in her living room or mine. It would happen at the scene of her intended final victory, the insurance company office. The days leading up to Friday crawled by, each hour thick with anticipation and a strange, unsettling calm. My anger hadn't subsided, but it had settled deep within me, a cold, hard resolve where fear and hurt used to churn. I had the evidence, the medical file, bank records, witness accounts, my own documented timeline. Dr. Peterson had offered to accompany me, but I decided against it. This was something I needed to do myself. His evidence spoke for itself, and his presence might complicate the initial confrontation. I did, however, ask him to be reachable by phone, ready to corroborate my identity and medical status instantly if needed. I went over the plan in my head countless times. I would arrive at the insurance company's downtown office shortly before midday on Friday. I knew Patricia favored the late morning for appointments, trying to avoid the worst of the lunch rush. I would wait, observe, and choose my moment. There would be no shouting, no accusations hurled across a lobby. My strength, I decided, would be in my calm, undeniable presence. The very fact of my existence was the ultimate refutation of her scheme. I chose my outfit carefully, a simple, dignified navy blue dress Arthur had always liked, comfortable shoes, my hair neatly pinned up. I wanted to look like myself. Barbara Whitman, retired nurse, widow, mother, not a victim, not a ghost. Just a woman reclaiming her life. The night before, sleep was elusive. The image of Patricia's face when she saw me played over and over in my mind. Would there be shock, fear, remorse, or just cold calculation, already planning her next move? I thought about the gambling addiction, the desperation that must have consumed her. Could I find it in myself to offer help, even as I held her accountable? The complexity of it all weighed heavily on me. This wasn't a straightforward story of good versus evil. It was a family tragedy, twisted by addiction and deceit. Pressing charges felt necessary, a consequence she had earned, but abandoning her to the wreckage felt incomplete. Arthur wouldn't have wanted that. He believed in second chances, even when they seemed undeserved. Friday morning dawned bright and clear, a beautiful autumn day utterly at odds with the task ahead. I ate a small breakfast I barely tasted, double-checked the contents of my handbag, ID, phone, a copy of Dr. Peterson's summary letter, and called for a ride share. The drive downtown felt surreal, the city bustling with life while I headed towards a confrontation predicated on my supposed death. As we pulled up across the street from the imposing glass building of the Citadel Insurance Company, my heart hammered against my ribs. I paid the driver, took a deep breath, and stepped onto the pavement. I could see the entrance, the security desk just inside. There was no turning back now. I smoothed my dress, gripped my handbag, and started walking towards the revolving doors, towards the moment Patricia thought she would finally be free, unaware that her carefully constructed lie was about to shatter. The lobby of Citadel Insurance was hushed and cool, smelling faintly of lemon polish and corporate efficiency. Marble floors gleamed under recessed lighting, and the low murmur of conversation barely disturbed the air of quiet importance. My eyes scanned the seating area near the claims department section, and there she was, Patricia, sitting in one of the plush armchairs, nervously tapping her foot, clutching a large envelope. She looked thinner than I remembered, paler, the strain evident around her eyes despite her carefully applied makeup. She hadn't seen me yet. My heart constricted for a moment. That was still my daughter, caught in a self-made trap. But the cold resolve quickly returned. She had made her choices. A well-dressed man, presumably the claims agent, approached her with a file. "Miss Holloway?" "Andrew Sterling. We spoke on the phone. If you'll come this way. We just have the final paperwork for you to sign regarding your late mother's policy." Patricia stood up, forcing a somber smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Sterling. It's been a difficult time." Her voice held a practiced note of grief, that made my stomach clench. They walked towards a polished wooden desk set slightly apart from the main waiting area. I watched them, my steps measured and silent on the marble floor as I followed at a distance. Mr. Sterling laid out several documents, pointing to various lines, explaining the final steps. Patricia nodded, her focus entirely on the papers that represented her fraudulent salvation. This was it, my moment. I walked steadily towards the desk, my sensible shoes making almost no sound. Neither Patricia nor Mr. Sterling noticed me until I was standing right beside them. Patricia looked up first, annoyed at the interruption, her expression shifting rapidly from impatience to confusion, then to utter slack-jawed disbelief. Her face drained of all color, leaving her makeup standing out like a mask. Her eyes widened in sheer terror, fixed on me as if seeing an apparition. Mr. Sterling looked from Patricia's horrified face to me, his professional smile faltering into bewilderment. "Can I help you, madam?" he asked, clearly taken aback by the silent, intense woman who had materialized beside his client. I didn't look at Patricia directly, not yet. I kept my gaze on the agent, my voice calm, clear, and carrying easily in the quiet space. I reached into my handbag, took out my driver's license, my Medicare card, and placed them firmly on the desk, right next to the claim forms Patricia was about to sign. The photo on the license was unmistakably me. "I believe," I said, meeting Mr. 410. Sterling's widening eyes. "There's been some confusion about my current status." I finally turned my head slowly to look at my daughter. Patricia stared back, her mouth opening and closing silently, her body trembling. The pen she had been holding slipped from her nerveless fingers and clattered onto the polished wood. The sound seemed unnaturally loud in the sudden absolute silence that had fallen around the desk. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Mr. Sterling's eyes darted between my identification, Patricia's ashen face, and me. The professional mask had completely dissolved, replaced by stunned comprehension. "Miss Holloway," he began, his voice low and sharp, directed at Patricia but his eyes still flicking towards me. "What is the meaning of this?" Patricia didn't answer. She couldn't. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her eyes locked on mine, filled with a terrifying cocktail of fear and dawning realization. The carefully constructed facade had crumbled in an instant, leaving only the raw, ugly truth exposed under the fluorescent lights of the insurance office. She swayed slightly, gripping the edge of the desk for support, her knuckles white. "The meaning, Mr. Sterling," I said calmly, picking up my ID, "is that my daughter, Patricia Holloway, has filed a fraudulent death claim. I am Barbara Whitman. I did not die from complications following my surgery. I am very much alive, as you can see." I gestured towards the medical summary letter I'd placed beside my license. "And this is from my surgeon, Dr. James Peterson, confirming my health status and recovery." Mr. Sterling picked up the letter, his eyes scanning it quickly. He looked back at Patricia, his expression hardening. "Security," he said, his voice tight but controlled, speaking into the intercom on his desk. Patricia let out a small, choked sob and sank heavily into the chair beside the desk, burying her face in her hands. The collapse wasn't dramatic, but it was absolute, a complete surrender to the weight of her actions. Security arrived quickly, discreet but firm. Mr. Sterling explained the situation in low tones, indicating the documents, Patricia, and me. The police were called. Through it all, I remained standing, a pillar of quiet certainty amidst the chaos my presence had unleashed. When the police officers arrived, I presented my evidence clearly and concisely. Patricia remained slumped in the chair, unable to speak, unable to even look at me. Seeing her like that, utterly broken, didn't bring the satisfaction I might have expected. Instead, there was a profound sadness, a deep ache for the relationship irrevocably shattered, for the desperation that had led her here. I pressed charges. It was the necessary consequence, the only way to truly nullify the fraud and protect myself legally. Elder financial abuse, family betrayal, These things couldn't be swept under the rug, even when the perpetrator was your own child. But as Patricia was eventually led away, looking small and lost, I knew my journey wasn't over. Later, after the legal proceedings had begun, I learned the full extent of her gambling debts, far worse than the house foreclosure hinted at. It was a destructive addiction that had consumed her judgment and her humanity. I made a decision then, one that felt true to myself and perhaps, in a complex way, to Arthur's memory. While the law took its course regarding the fraud, I contacted addiction resources. I arranged, through her lawyer, for information on treatment programs to be made available to her. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was an acknowledgement of the illness that played a part in this horrific betrayal. It was choosing a path forward that didn't involve completely severing the last, frayed thread of connection, however damaged it might be. Reclaiming my life wasn't just about exposing the lie. It was about choosing how to live with the truth, in all its painful complexity. The silence in my house now feels different again, no longer unnerving or dangerous, but quiet, earned peace. A space where Barbara Whitman, alive and whole, could begin to heal. Barbara's story leaves us breathless, doesn't it? Standing tall in the face of such profound betrayal, reclaiming not just her finances, but her very existence. It's a stark reminder that sometimes the deepest wounds come from those closest to us. But it also shows the incredible strength that can be found within when pushed to the brink. What do you think is harder to overcome, the financial fraud itself, or the emotional devastation of being betrayed by your own child? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing your perspectives. And if you appreciate stories of resilience and justice, like Barbara's, please subscribe to Revenge with Emma for more narratives that empower and inspire.